My name is Rosalind Perez.
Hi, my name's Ella Mayfield.
I'm Tim Olshansky.
My name is Kevin Mullen.
I go to Bennington College.
I'm an undergraduate physics student at Appalachian State University in North Carolina.
I am a sixth year PhD student at this point, so doctoral candidate in astronomy and physics.
I am an undergraduate at WVU, majoring in physics.
And I am here at WVU under an RU, working with Emmanuel Fonseca, working with data from the CHIME radio telescope over at the Green Bank Observatory to work with a Python library called FitBurst to analyze fast radio bursts.
And I'm here at WVU doing an RU program this summer, and I'm working with Dr. Maura McLaughlin on pulsar searches and timing.
I'm a pulsar astronomer and also a plasma physicist, so I'm really interested in understanding pulsars and plasma physics.
And this summer I am working under Dr. Maura McLaughlin to look for pulsars.
This part of small town universe that stood out to me the most was the community that has formed around Green Bank, West Virginia. I really only knew it for its research observatory before that, but to see people come from a diverse amount of backgrounds, people who have medical issues, who require to be in a radio quiet zone to live life comfortably, seeing people who had lived there for generations in terms of their family line and still continuing to give back to the community of Green Bank by either working in surrounding neighborhoods around it or in the observatory itself. It added so much more humanity to it than I already knew it to have by just knowing the people who worked at Green Bank, and they were already so welcoming. But seeing all these people who are so emotionally attached and invested to the observatory added a breath of life to it that sincerely did make me a little emotional to see people talk about it and wonder whether or not it was going to go away, and saying that it can't go away because it's been there forever. We've invested so much money into it. I feel like to take away the Green Bank Observatory would be costing the livelihoods of a lot of these people who require jobs from Green Bank.
Really just the diversity of people's connection with Green Bank really stood out to me. I already knew a lot more of like the scientific background and how famous Green Bank is for its impact on radio astronomy, being an astronomer myself, but I didn't really know how much of a community impact that it's had. And I had no idea that being affected by electromagnetic radiation, I had no idea that existed. There's so many different reasons why Green Bank is so important, and I was only aware of the scientific reasons, but it's so great to see how much of an impact it has on the people who live there, and it seemed like they wouldn't change it for the world, and so who are we to try and convince them they should?
One aspect of it that stood out to me, I think, is the honesty. I think there's something very Appalachian about Green Bank, and I think it transcends through the film, and I think it even transcends to people who move here from out of state, finding Appalachian values and connecting to their community.
I think the part that stood out to me the most was the community of people that have like formed around the Green Bank telescope. Like the others have said, that's not really something that you really hear about that much. Usually when you hear about the Green Bank telescope, it's just about the data that they find and everything, not so much to do with the people that live there or the people that make it happen. That's why it was also impactful when they were talking about how if the Green Bank telescope closes, it'll like leave the community like without any jobs, and then the community will probably have to scatter out. There was a part in the movie where they said that they would have to move if the telescope closed. They would have to move somewhere else. It would be bad for West Virginia as a whole because on the last census we lost the most people out of any state. I know they've been trying to get more people to come and stay in West Virginia. Putting money to the telescope or even expanding the community, I think could help get more people in West Virginia and staying in West Virginia. A lot of people are leaving West Virginia because there aren't as many opportunities in certain fields.
Visiting Green Bank on 2 separate occasions has brought me not only so much joy, but expanded my understanding of scientific education and scientific communication. We were able to use one of the older telescopes that was more manual than the other telescopes, and it was so interesting to get to see this very involved process of handling data, and also seeing posters from all other schools that had been there recently, and that ranged from elementary schools to high schools to universities. Green Bank offers so many opportunities to the high schools around it and elementary schools, so to be introduced to astronomy, allowing students to participate in its summer camp. And I feel like any opportunity to be involved in astronomy is great, and there should be more of that. And the fact that Green Bank is so willing and inviting to everybody is just marvelous, and I feel like they should be continuing to get funding for that because, don't you want people to be educated and learn about something new? Isn't that the most beautiful thing ever, the willingness to learn and inviting people to learn? And I feel like the folks in Green Bank are just amazing for making that a part of their mission as well as fueling research.
I think that the Green Bank telescope is important to West Virginia because I think it shapes part of the identity of West Virginia. It was like the world's biggest steerable radio telescope. That's huge for West Virginia, and usually West Virginia isn't looked at as like leading in many fields. But I think that the fact that we have the Green Bank telescope and that it does so much for radio astronomy should be brought up more.
There is somewhat of a stereotype that rural community living is somehow antithetical with modernity and science. And I think that's completely untrue. The community of Green Bank is so intricately involved with the science of Green Bank and how the upkeep of the observatory and all the science that's going on with it and all the student opportunities that are going on with it are also so linked with the area itself, with the people who live on the land, and how everyone is so interconnected, and how the schools and the community are being impacted by the raising awareness about the science. And so how like a state like West Virginia that you might not think of as being like a hub of science, real rural area, I'm sure they don't do a lot out there, and we are doing a lot out here. And I already knew that because I have a lot of family here. All of my like generations back family is from here, and so I'm really familiar with this area and I love it here. And so it really feels to me like a connection to my roots and also a push into the future. And to see that like people here are so invested in the past and in their community roots, but also in science, and those two things are not mutually exclusive.
It's very easy to have a prejudice and stereotype about rural America. And I think that often is because in the city, you don't have the same grasp of what life can be like without technology. Green Bank also affords opportunity to places that typically lack it. In this state, where historically it's been an impoverished state with great struggles with labor rights. When I think about what science brings to the state, what it brings is a lot of people who are also care deeply about communities. Look at the outreach that GBT has done to local communities. Science doesn't care about the money. What it cares about is the ideas. And good ideas come from good connection. And I think community, is what's so valuable.
So I've been looking at some follow-up data of a pulsar that was discovered previously and has been followed up with the GBT. I've been able to use GBT data to confirm that it is in fact a pulsar and to observe some really interesting structure in the pulses of this pulsar themselves. And it has been really great to redetect it and add to the growing population of pulsars discovered. While I've been here, we decided to use one of the smaller telescopes in real time to get some additional data. My advisor was like, hey, why don't we just submit a request to one of the smaller telescopes and get some more data on it right now? And we did. And we were able to use one of the smaller telescopes that has been being used for education and outreach, which is the 20 meter that is used for the Skynet program. I've actually also used Skynet back at my home institution in just one of my intro astronomy classes. We used Skynet as part of our labs. And so Skynet is a really awesome program. It really gives students like a really hands-on feeling that you don't get when you're just reading a textbook or watching a video about astronomy. Even if you're not physically at the site of the observatory, there's still something so magical about like, wow, I just submitted like a real request to a real telescope and it's truly going to take my data and give it back to me. And Green Bank gets to be a huge part of that.
Access to a facility like Green Bank is really important for a few different reasons. I think first of all, it can get people interested like that have no experience with this sort of thing. It can like reveal to them what kind of goes on at these places. I went to Green Bank with my family when I was little. I don't remember how old I was, but I specifically remember them doing the liquid nitrogen with the balloon and showing how the liquid nitrogen affects the balloon and getting to see the telescope. Even though it was a short little tour, we didn't stay there for very long. I remember it being very cool. I think it probably in part helped inspire me to want to do this field. Besides that, like just inspiring the people who don't know anything about it to do it, I think it's also just a very valuable tool for people who are already interested in it. Just this past semester with the college, we did a one-night trip to Green Bank. They let us use the 40-foot telescope. We were shown how it worked earlier in the day after the tour. Later that night, we were given like a sheet with like times that different stellar objects would be like visible to the telescope, so that we could go and we could try to find them using the telescope. Like we stayed up late going out to the bunker to use the equipment, and we kept the charts, and we had some of them in the undergraduate lounge, and that definitely helped me see how they did stuff with like the actual charts of paper when they studied radio astronomy. You can always like learn something by going there, even if like you're already interested in it. You can get involved with it. They can show you how the things work.
A few hundred years ago, there was this fellow named James Clerk Maxwell, and he got into this little mathy problem, found a little mathy inconsistency that I really thought was interesting. And that discovery is what enables us to have radio, telecommunication lines, satellites. He discovered electromagnetic waves. And that was because he liked obscure things. Science lives and breathes on obscure things. What's more obscure than what's out there? Astronomy allows us to really push the boundaries of anything we can do. And so the telescopes like Green Bank are essential for understanding things we don't have even any chance of really creating here on Earth. And I think in that sense, I think it sets up for why Green Bank is so important. When things are gone, it's really hard to remake them. Once something's out the door, it's hard to rebuild it. Closing Green Bank would be a real devastating thing for the state.
And the closure of the Green Bank telescope would very much impact the community of Green Bank if it supplies most of the jobs. The town that I'm from, Moorfield, West Virginia, in Hardy County, there is a chicken plant there that provides a ton of jobs for the community. I know if that would shut down in my community, there'd be hundreds of people that would now have to like have a place for work. For me personally, I have a scholarship that I've gotten, which is the West Virginia STEM scholarship. And one of the requirements for that scholarship is every time that you take it, you have to work a year in West Virginia after you're done with school. For someone like me who wants to do stuff with like space, Green Bank is really like the big place where I could go to fulfill that requirement for that scholarship. So just having that there as something for West Virginians who are interested in radio astronomy to do for their work is very important. And if it shuts down, then people won't be able to use it to do their work here anymore, and then they'll have to go somewhere else.
Closing Green Bank would be devastating for so many people. And I think the film showed that really well, of how many different facets of people's lives that type of closure would affect. For me, as an undergraduate student who is going into my senior year, I'm going to be applying to grad schools. The idea of one of the most important telescopes in the world closing down as I'm starting my career in astronomy is quite scary for the future of astronomy and the futures of careers for young people like me wanting to get into astronomy. And the fact that I've gotten to come do this RU program here and work with GBT data, if the GBT didn't exist, I might not be here. There are so many other students that are working even closer with the GBT than I have, and I've only worked with it a little bit, and that's still been so important that I've gotten to do that. So many dozens of students that are impacted by it, and they're like even more, just hundreds and hundreds of scientists who have used the data and how it's furthering science. It's irreplaceable. And so it would be devastating.
Walking away from watching the documentary, it has breathed like a new air of humanity into Green Bank that I wasn't aware with previously. I only ever, was accustomed to the faculty and staff working at Green Bank as well as the researchers, being like a community that has formed around Green Bank, whether that be through health conditions or people who had been there for generations or people who had come there after becoming a researcher at Green Bank. To take away funding from the Green Bank Observatory would be to take away the livelihoods of all of these people. Green Bank contributes $30 million to West Virginia's economy, and not only that, but to shut down operations at Green Bank, you're taking away jobs from people and the way that people live, and then people will have to relocate, and then to reintroduce Wi-Fi and cellular towers. It will also impact the health of other people. So it's a very multifaceted problem that people are sort of juggling with really easily, saying that it's sort of a money thing. So much money has gone into building and maintaining Green Bank, and to great successes. Duncan and Maura, who were able to discover fast radio bursts. It's amazing. Isn't that so crazy? This is a whole science facility that you're shutting down, and so much data will be gone, and there's no other place in the world that's doing this at such a fast pace with such readily available data. So many people are gaining great stuff from this. Scientists, people are gaining jobs from this. People are gaining a comfortable way of living in general. It's not as simple as just turning off a telescope and then saving a bunch of money. It's so much more than that.